When I was 16, my friends Evan, Jake, and I decided to rent a hotel for the night during spring break. We checked into the hotel, which had a strange, musty odor that made us uncomfortable, but we decided to stay anyway. Once we got to our room, it was about 3 p.m., so we decided to go swimming. The pool was located downstairs, separate from the main hotel building. As we approached the pool entrance, we noticed a man standing there. He was at least 6'3", dressed entirely in black, with a hood covering his face. His presence was intimidating, and I felt a pang of panic, though I didn't say anything to my friends. We got into the pool and swam for a few hours. The water was cold but refreshing, and we started to relax. However, my sense of unease returned when I saw the man again. He was sitting on a chair by the pool, still dressed in black and staring at us. I cleared my throat nervously and asked, "Can I help you, sir?" He didn't respond. My paranoia grew as I tried to ignore him and continue swimming. Then, I saw another figure, also dressed in black, at the bottom of the pool. I screamed like a little girl and bolted for the door. When I looked back, both the man in the chair and the figure under the water were gone. My friends thought I was imagining things, but I knew what I saw. Feeling too unsettled to continue swimming, I suggested we go out for dinner at a nearby restaurant. We found a table and sat down, trying to shake off the weirdness of the pool incident. But then, I saw him again, the man in black on the other side of the dining room, staring at me. This was the last straw. I stood up to confront him, but he disappeared before I could reach him. After dinner, I told my friends that we should leave the hotel the next morning, but they didn't agree. Reluctantly, I decided to stay for the night. By 10 p.m., we were all in bed trying to sleep. I woke up to strange noises and saw a shadowy figure at the end of my bed. I tried to calm myself down, convincing myself it was just my hat that I had placed there before going to bed. I closed my eyes and tried to sleep again, but 30 minutes later, more noises woke me up. Feeling thirsty, I reached under the bed to grab my water bottle, but instead grabbed something soft and familiar. It was my hat. Panic surged through me as I realized the shadowy figure was not my hat. I screamed at the top of my lungs when I heard a voice whisper in my ear. I jumped out of bed and saw two men in black standing right there. I tried to fight them, but they were too strong. They grabbed me and dragged me out of the room. One of them covered my mouth, muffling my screams. I passed out and woke up on a stretcher in a hospital. I learned that the men had knifed me while I was unconscious, and someone had found me and called for help. The doctors told me that unfortunately, no one had been able to catch the men who attacked me. The experience left me deeply traumatized, and to this day I always sleep with a nightlight on to keep the darkness and the fear at bay. This all began in late July of 2012. I come from a small town where everyone knows each other. Having just turned 18, like most people my age, I enjoyed going to the beach to drink and have bonfires with friends. I often hung out with a close-knit group of friends, and we would drive to the nearby city for fun. One night, my friend Adam and I decided to go to the big city to watch a movie. After saying goodnight to my parents, we hopped into Adam's car and headed to the movie theater. We had a great time watching the film, and afterward we decided to get some food at McDonald's. This is where I met the man who would change my life. While Adam placed our order, I stood beside him, busying myself with my phone. The guy who served us gave me a smile, and I smiled back. I told Adam I was going to have a cigarette, and he nodded. Moments later, Adam walked out with our food, followed by the guy who had served us. The man approached me asking for a lighter and introduced himself as Chris. We struck up a conversation, and he gave me his number, suggesting we go out sometime. I agreed, and we made plans for the following weekend. After about a month of spending a lot of time with Chris, often at my parents' place, we decided to make our relationship official. Chris started spending most weeknights at my parents' house, where I lived in a granny flat on their property. He would drop me off at school in the morning, to the chagrin of my friends who had to take the bus. One morning, I suggested Chris pull over next to a school bus waiting for students. I stuck my head out the window and told one of my friends to hop in. This was my first mistake, introducing the two of them. A few weeks after my friend met Chris, we broke up, and it was a messy split. Shortly after, unsettling things began to happen. I would hear footsteps on the gravel driveway at odd hours of the night. I often saw Chris's car parked at the end of my parents' road under a streetlight before I went to bed. The stalking escalated. I could hear him talking to someone outside my window and trying to jiggle open the garage door. The situation became truly terrifying when I started receiving phone calls and texts from an unknown number during class. The messages detailed how this person was watching me walk to the bus and what my parents were doing throughout the day. The threats included breaking into my house, assaulting me, and hiding my body in the forest. At that time, I was preparing for my end-of-year exams and university applications. I confided in my friend Julia, not knowing she had been spending more time with Chris since their introduction. This was a fatal mistake because she knew my schedule and my whereabouts, making it easy for Chris to target me. Julia and Chris began dating, and the threatening texts became more frequent. One evening, while I was working late with my drama class, we noticed his car parked across the road. My classmates said it looked like there were two figures in the car waiting for me to come out. I panicked and called my mom, who came to collect me and made sure we weren't followed. The situation reached a breaking point when I was so scared that I went to the police with the messages and the fact that someone was trying to break into our property. Chris had weapons in his car because he liked to hunt, and he was also involved in the drug scene. The police investigated but found nothing, which only angered Chris more. That evening, he parked at the end of the road as usual, waited for the lights to go out, and then approached the house. I was sleeping in my parents' living room, which had large windows and sliding doors. I heard him walking on the driveway, heading towards my flat, and then the sound of a gun being cocked. I quickly crawled down the hallway to my parents' room and quietly told my mom, "Someone's outside." My dad jumped up, grabbed his robe and his rifle, and ran out of the kitchen door, setting off the sensor light. He chased someone running through the paddock. After that night, things calmed down for about a month until I moved 10 hours away to a new city. The night after I left, my mom called to say someone had been in my house, leaving muddy footprints everywhere, as if they were scoping the place out. Strange things continued to happen at my parents' place, like trees being cut down in the middle of the night and cars driving slowly past with their lights off. At my new apartment, a car with tinted windows would always be parked across the road watching me. I received violent voicemails from private numbers. This continued until late last year when it all suddenly stopped. There were no more phone calls, sightings of random cars, or odd occurrences at my parents' house. Every time I go home, I never tell anyone when I'm leaving or when I'll be back. I always keep my home address private and my phone number restricted. I always tell my mom, if I go missing, we know where to start.